says a lot about us as individuals. So we're voting now on how we're going to spend the money of the state, and we're voting on, we're crushed in time, and we get a what is this, 1,100 pages yesterday afternoon, and nobody, I don't think anybody could go through 1,100 pages overnight. I know I couldn't. And I think it's just kind of a travesty to give us this, and now today we have to vote. We don't have to do it this way. And it really undercuts, as my colleagues have said, the feeling of democracy, that is fair. And so there was a saying, the budget, some of us think is good. I know many on the other side think it's good. Many of us on our side think it's not so good. But there was a saying that I learned when I was a little kid. It said, good, better, best. Don't let them rest until your good is better and your better is best. Why can't we do that? We should change the process so that when we get to this point, the most important point, we are taking our time. Not 1,100 pages from 4 o'clock yesterday to now. I couldn't do it. I bet you 2 to 1, most people in here couldn't do it unless you're a speed reader or set up half the night. We don't have to do it like that. So I'm not going to vote for this budget. There's some things in it I actually like a lot. I like Medicaid expansion, for sure. But I don't feel we had to do it like this. I know we didn't have to do it like this. So I urge you to vote against that, for that this budget, for that reason alone. Thank you.
Gentleman from Chatham, Representative Reeves is recognized to debate the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And Mr. Speaker, I do want to first extend an apology. Yesterday, I made an offer to you that if you were in need of some assistance and someone to take your place, that I would be happy to take that place. And I noted earlier today that I know how it is because all of us Democrats look alike. And so I just wanted to reemphasize to you, that was Robert Reeves that made that comment to you. And I'm still happy to take your place, so.
Representative Reeves, you're still the handsome guy you were when we were all back at UNC Chapel Hill, so it's all good.
Thank you very much.
Gentleman has the floor.
Folks, obviously I'm going to be coming to you to ask you to vote against this budget. And there's been a lot over the last 2 weeks that a lot of us have dealt with. And as folks in my caucus, and especially my friend Reverend Quick will tell you, I'm never one to say anything about I told you so. So being the person too mature to say I told you so, all I will say is over the last 2 weeks, I hope some of you remembered some of the things that I talked to you about where we were headed as a General Assembly. And see, and the reason this is relevant for the budget is because the budget's what we're here for. The budget is the big document. That's the one job we actually have. But a lot goes into crafting the budget. And this budget, objectively, and this is really at a point now of what you believe government should be, this budget does one thing. When we walk out of the 2023-24 session, before this session started, the two most powerful people in the state of North Carolina were the Speaker of the House and the President Pro Tem. When you put all the laws that we have passed in 2023 together and then finish it with this budget, we have now made the North Carolina legislature the most powerful legislature in the entire country. We have abilities and rights now that are controlled by the 170 of us as have never been seen or contemplated by the makers of the Constitution. And therefore, the Speaker, which, understand, I'm not talking about my friend Speaker Moore, because as we know, Speaker Moore will be moving on. And I'm not talking about the previous speaker, Speaker Paré, because she will be moving on. So I'm not hitting anybody in particular. This is talking about the structure of what our government will look like. Next year, we will have a new speaker no matter what happens. And what we have done is we have made the person who takes over in the 25 biennium the most powerful person in the state. What we have done this year is we have told local Republican and Democratic county parties that when it comes down to your elections, we're going to decide who your representatives will be on your boards. We have told various boards that no longer the governor that you elect statewide will no longer be making appointments. And this budget finishes that off. We will be making the appointments for the positions of the people that make decisions about you. For instance, judges. Now, if you're a minority of any kind, and when we think minority, immediately in this country we think color. That's not true. Minority is being a member of a group that is not represented in the majority. So at different times, everybody in here is either descended from or a part of a minority. At one point in time in this country, if you were in the South, you were a minority, because the way that our government was structured, it was dominated economically by the North, especially after the Civil War. And so you were subject to the whims of those in the North. Obviously, if you were a woman in this country, until really our lifetime, women have been subject to the whims of the majority, that being men. Some would argue with the fact that we still haven't passed an ERA that women are still subject to that. And this budget enforces that. Obviously, if you're a racial minority, you have been subject. Why do I talk about this? Because the thing with judges is as serious and as frightening as anything I have ever witnessed in my lifetime. The only reason that I stand here to make this debate is because there were judges that stood in the place and held the line when the majority said Robert Reeves should not have the right to represent himself or any other constituents in this country. Because judges held the line and they said that somebody like Robert Reeves ought to have the right to a free education. That somebody like Robert Reeves should have the right to get any job that he chooses in this country. Because if we go back to the beginning of this country, what was this country founded on? And see, I'm not one of those that takes things literally when it happens. I feel strongly in my heart about this experiment that's America. I feel strongly in my heart that when the Constitution was put together, that people like Thomas Jefferson and George Washington in their hearts meant for every free citizen in this country to have the same unalienable rights, to have the same opportunities. So yes, back in the 1700s, I as a black man wouldn't have had those opportunities. But I sincerely believe in my heart that they believed that once I became a citizen, that I should have those rights. But to have those rights, I have to have judges. And now, this three-pronged government that these geniuses put together, you think about where we were in the world. We set the example for everybody. Every first world country that is successful now, outside of Russia and China, have followed the American example and said, a government by the people and of the people is the best that you can have. But we are reducing the ability for people to do this. Because we're now killing judges in this. An earlier version of this bill took out 5 judges. Now, that's been taken away, and we appreciate that. And I appreciate the efforts of one person in here in particular. I won't give him credit because I don't want to get him in trouble for making sure that that got out. But that was what we like to call a shot across the bow. Because if you talk to every one of their judges, they'll tell you how they pissed somebody off in this General Assembly. Not intentionally, but by following the law. Each one of those 5 judges has either sat on a panel that Judge John was talking about and made a decision for the citizens of this state, or made some other decision in a courtroom based on what they believed the law was that somebody in our 170 members disagreed with. And so as a result, their jobs were taken away. And so for 2 days, these judges had to sit and think, do I have a job anymore? I got elected by the people of my community, and now I'm gone. So yeah, they got their jobs back, but the message has been sent. Don't you dare speak out against us again. So what does that do for judges? Now, what else are we doing to erode the third branch? I mean, I don't even have to get into what we've done to the executive branch. We're taking away all the executive branch's powers, and we're taking away all their appointment power, so we don't even have an executive branch anymore. So that's done. But our judicial. So what else are we doing to affect judges? So now what we're doing is we're setting up 10 special superior court judges. We're appointing judges. What is that telling people about the chance that they've got fairness waiting for them when we as a majority run them over, when the world is running them over? What do you think that tells them about what's going to happen when they go into the courtrooms? These hand-picked folks, hand-picked by this General Assembly that they're so afraid of, will be making a decision about whether or not we violated the law. And it's interesting because it doesn't frighten anybody. There's a famous quote by Martin Niemöller that it's hard to use because it harkens back to the worst time in the history of this world. But I have to say it because I want you to think what I'm saying and listen to what I'm saying. First, they came for the socialists, and I did not speak out because I was not a socialist. Then they came for the trade unionists, and I did not speak out because I was not a trade unionist. Then they came for the Jews, and I did not speak out because I was not a Jew. Then they came for me, and there was no one left to speak for me. Well, we've lost our judges, at least in the general public's eye. So why is that problematic? Because now we have created a state police force in the form of GovOps. Think about all the efforts that have been made under the Constitution to protect your life and liberty. The Fourth Amendment's primary purpose is to make sure that if you upset somebody who is in power, that person can't just come into your home, into your most private settings, into your offices, wherever that may be, and just do what they want. Now, the reason I brought that quote up is because the immediate thought right now is, for some people, and I'm not blaming you for thinking this, is like, well, shoot, I'm a Republican. I ain't got to worry about them doing anything to mine. Now, remember, this goes to anybody who gets state funds. And a lot of us self-made business people think, well, it doesn't affect me. I'll use myself as an example. I've got lawyers in my firm that do court-appointed work. So under this new state police force, if I make the wrong person mad, they can come in and do whatever they want in my office. They can search my files. They can search client files. They can search my personal communications. Guys, is this really what we want? And so what's that got to do, Robert, with the last 2 weeks? Think to yourself, have you been on the other side of anybody powerful in this building in the last 2 weeks? So when that person gets mad at you, whoever that is, next year, do you want that ability? that they don't have to get search warrants, they don't have to go through judges, they don't have to do anything. Is that what you want? And then what else have we done to erode people's faith in the judiciary? All of our judges that we've got here in this place will tell you that the hardest place to be a judge is either district or superior court. Are we giving them raises? I missed that. We giving them raises? No. I got friends of mine that have been doing district and superior court forever. Some of those 5 that were getting ready to lose their jobs. You stay sometimes 6, 7 o'clock at night. You get there early. You come in on the weekends because you don't want people staying locked up in jail. You're always on call. You're never on call. They getting any kind of a raise? No. Guess who's getting raises? The same judges that we're appointing and the same judges that we're helping get elected because we decided we wanted partisan judges, and the same ones that will determine if the things that we do are constitutional. Not only are we giving them substantial raises, but we're giving them longer to enjoy it. If you serve on the district court bench, you're getting off that bench at some point. If you happen to get elected by the Democratic power machine or the Republican power machine, you get an extra 3 years, another extra $200,000 a year to stay in place. That looks bad. And I'm not imputing anything about the judges. I'm just telling you guys that looks bad at a point where we're redistricting and we're doing a lot of things that are going to be challenged. There's a lot of stuff in this budget that some people are going to consider unconstitutional. But again, some of us aren't as concerned because we're like, well, it's not really going to affect me. But one day, you're going to be on the other side. One day, you're going to reach that tipping point where you're in disagreement with the majority. I'm not saying that as a threat. I'm just saying that's evolution. That's part of life. At some point, the feelings that you had 5 years ago aren't the feelings that you had 5 years later. The beliefs that you had change. I mean, heck, some of y'all were Democrats when I was born. But anyway, so, guys, we are completely destroying the fabric of what made this country great, which takes me to our last prong, the most interesting prong, really to me the most insidious prong. Language matters. So when I refer to something as a voucher, I give a certain image in people's minds. And so that makes people think that's something I'm giving to this individual and they're doing what they please and everything. But if I say it in another way, you start to see the problem. What we're doing with private schools isn't about making sure people get into private schools. We have found a way to funnel funding to private schools, is what we're doing. And why do I say that? Say that $4,000 goes with a child to public school. Is that $4,000 your $4,000? Do you have the chance to say, you know what? I don't want to send my kid to school. I'd rather keep that $4,000 for myself. That kid doesn't need to know how 2 + 2 goes. No, that goes to the school. That's how schooling works. And this is an age-old problem, actually, in this country. When we first opened our public education system, that was the decision that poor people had to make. At that time, children could work, and they had to decide, do I send my kid to this free school, or do I help he or she get a job to earn money to make sure that the family survives? My grandfather had to leave school in 5th grade because he had to help support the family. So school wasn't really an option. There were also people in America who were against, at the time that we went into free public education, because they said, well, if we educate all of them, then who's going to do the work? We need workers. We don't need people with educations. One of the things they did with slaves is they actually would execute people who were teaching slaves to read their Bibles, because education was a big deal. If people were willing to die for education, education must be a big deal. And you know what this budget has done? It has finally flipped over to where we are giving taxpayer money to schools that the taxpayer can't go to. Because a little known secret is that wealthy people aren't the only people that pay taxes. Actually, if you work in this country, you're going to pay taxes. Or else one day the IRS is going to come visit you and show you how to pay taxes. So why should I have my money going to a school that my kid can't go to? And you say, well, your kid can go. And I'm being frank, Robert Reeves' kid probably can go. But I'm not up here for Robert Reeves' kid. I'm up here for everybody else's children. I'm up here for children that may want to go to the school, but because of certain ideologies that they have, that school says, nope, you can't come here. And that school has every right to do that. Representative Clemens talked to you about this. I do this for kids who may qualify on paper to be at that school, but there's something about that child that those school folks don't like, and that child can't go. And this is not ascribing bad intentions to anybody that runs a private school, but it is a fact that we're putting a whole lot of hope and belief in everybody that opens a private school.
Representative Reeves,
Yes.
the gentleman's gone 3 minutes over, haven't called a tech yet, but.
And I will wrap it up. So with that being said, and thank you for that. With that being said, and I know it's going to run a little long, I'm going to tell you this, guys. I'm asking you to vote no because you stood strong, a lot of you, over the last 2 weeks when there were things that were going to be in this budget that you weren't happy with. There are things in this budget that you've got to take seriously. It can't be about the money. It's got to be about the people. Vote no, please, and let's try to figure it out.
Final speaker is the gentleman from Wayne, Representative Bell, recognized to debate the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And members, it's yet to be, well, it's already been said, but we need to say it again. And Representative Lambert did an outstanding job communicating the thank yous that are due. But a big thank you goes to our central staff, goes to our partisan staff, the clerk's office, Sergeant at Arms office, everyone involved in getting us to this point with this budget. And if you think that you've been here long enough and ready to go home, trust me, these folks are ready for all of us to go home. Also, I want to thank our appropriation chairs. These men and women have worked tirelessly to get this budget done. Getting a budget to the floor is not an easy task. When you're dealing with 170 different viewpoints and personalities from all across the state, it's a challenge. And so our appropriation chairs, great job. Thank you for what you've done. We've heard much about today about what's not in the budget, what could be in the budget, or maybe things that are assumed to be in the budget. But let's talk about what exactly is in this document. What is in this budget is huge investments in healthcare, behavioral health, foster care programs, construction dollars for hospitals and clinics throughout our state. It also advances healthcare initiatives throughout the state, whether it be access to care or programs that stabilize healthcare in rural areas where we've lost healthcare facilities. It also makes effort on the mental health side, not just to the general public, but it ensures that we continue the effort to make sure no veteran is left behind. Major investments in education, whether it be K-12, community college, our university system. The investments there are not only in salaries and personnel and bonuses, whether it be bus drivers, administrative staff, our teachers, but it also goes into our university system, our community college system, to advance workforce development and to make sure that our university system stays the example of what to do throughout the country. This budget makes further investment in transportation, cybersecurity, water and sewer infrastructure, capital projects throughout our great state for a growing state. Many of them member projects for small programs that could be for a fire department, road construction, a school, a track. Important things in your community, you all had an input in doing that. It also continues our efforts on the environmental side. One of those is to make sure that we still invest in flood mitigation and disaster relief. We've seen huge advancements there, and the programs and projects that are in this budget goes to further that blueprint that we all supported. It also further invests in our savings reserve. 12 years ago, we had a very shallow savings reserve. Today, we have a strong savings reserve to prepare for that next natural disaster, hurricane, tornado, wildfire, or that next rainy day. This budget not only invests in our state employees as bonuses for our teachers and employees and retirees, but it also benefits every citizen in our great state by lowering their taxes. Those are hardworking people day in and day out that don't follow politics, that go in and make a difference in our community, are getting a tax break and more money in their pocket. Yes, this budget's taking longer than necessary. This budget will impact lives all the way. We say Murphy to Manio, but I'm going to say from Corova to Canton and everywhere in between, every small town in every corner of our state, this budget will make lives better for everyday North Carolinians. It is my hope that the governor will sign this budget. It is my hope that these boards on the side of this chamber will light up in green, and we can walk out of here and know that we did a great job for the citizens of this state. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The question before the House is the adoption of the conference report for House Bill 259, the state budget. Those in favor will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no. The clerk will open the vote. Representative Brown of Pitt wish to vote? Clerk will lock the machine and record the vote. 69 having voted in the affirmative and 40 in the negative. House Bill 259 passes on its second reading and remains on the calendar. Members, our last bill we're going to take before we go to our recess is Senate Bill 678. The clerk will read. And actually, before you do that, to the staff who are rapidly heading out the back door, I want to, on behalf of all the members, thank you for the hard work you all have done these last few months in the budget. Please join me in thanking the staff for their hard work on the budget. Actually, that looks like this bill is one I think the bill sponsor wants to wait for until after a caucus today, so we'll not read that this time. Members, for your planning purposes, I believe the majority leader is going to make an announcement concerning a Republican caucus, but I've communicated the time to both the majority and the minority leader. We are going to recess at this time until 9:30 this evening. The reason for that is several-fold. One, we know we're going to be coming back in at 12:05 tonight or in the morning to take up the third reading of the bill, as was announced yesterday. But there are some other bills that need to be disposed of on second reading. I know some conference reports are still making their way coming through. And so when we do recess, I'm going to direct the clerk to go ahead and receive those, to go ahead and add those to the calendar so members will know they're there. And as we've done in the past, if a member wants to make a motion to remove something from the calendar, the chair will entertain such a motion. But that will be the order. That will be the order of business. So members should be back promptly at 9:30 to take up other business. It won't move the budget in, but there'll be the Energy Bill 678, as well as the chair expects a number of other conference reports to be on at that time. So members should also be looking for a Rules Committee notice potentially. So members should pay attention to their email. At this time, the gentleman from Wayne, the majority leader, Representative Bell, is recognized for an announcement.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Republicans will caucus right downstairs in 1228 immediately upon recess. Please be prompt.
For what purpose does the lady from Guilford, Representative Harrison, rise?
Question for you, Mr. Speaker.
Lady's recognized.
As these bills or the conference reports are added to the calendar, that means we and the public will have access to the contents of the conference reports?
That's correct, yes.
Thank you.
Any further notices or announcements before we go into recess? For what purpose will gentleman from Gaston? Representative Torbett rise.
Question for Rules Chairman.
Gentleman, out to the Rules Chair. Representative Hall, does the gentleman yield?
I yield.
He yields.
I was previously made aware of a Rules meeting 50 minutes after the conclusion of session. Now I'm hearing caucus. Do we need to adjust our rule schedule, or have we already done that?
That's right. As the Speaker said, there will be a Rules Committee meeting at some point later today. We're still waiting on a number of conference reports to get finished, and so I'm going to wait and see how long it takes to get those finished. I think we're caucusing right now, so it's a little bit after 2 o'clock. I think it's safe to say that everyone is safe until at least 3:30 or so for those who want to go try to eat lunch. But as soon as I know when those bills are finished, we'll send out a notice.
For what purpose does the lady from Wake, Representative Cervania, rise?
Mr. Speaker, having submitted a representative statement with the clerk, I ask that it be read in its entirety, in the adjournment, and spread across the journal, and would like to recognize to speak
So
on the
ordered. In
same.
fact, the chair will direct it be read in its entirety upon recess this afternoon. The lady does have the floor to speak to a point of personal privilege.
Thank you, and I know I'm between you and lunch right now. This is a representative statement to recognize Hispanic Heritage Month. I want to thank our Hispanic and Latino American leaders and organizations that have been working with us on several projects and work throughout the years. And they've been in support of not only their community, but all communities here in North Carolina. And I want to also recognize that there is a great effort of our Spanish media to be spreading the word of the good work that we do here, including Enlace with Walter Gomez, who is present here, who had covered the actions that we had made for our budget. I'm going to be presenting this representative statement in both Spanish and English. Tengo un honor de presentarle esta declaración representante para el Mes Nacional de Herencia Hispana 2023. Hay muchas personas en la comunidad hispana y latinoamericana que han sido esenciales y han mejorado en nuestro estado. Les agradecemos por todo y por lo que harán en el futuro de Carolina del Norte. So in English, I am very honored to present this representative statement honoring the National Hispanic Heritage Month for this year. There are so many people in the Hispanic and Latino community who have been essential and have uplifted our state in so many ways. We thank you and are grateful for everything that you do and will continue to do for the future of our state. Thank you for indulging me.
For what purpose does the lady from Cabarrus, Representative Staten Williams, rise?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Point of personal privilege.
The lady has the floor.
Today is World Gratitude Day, and I wanted to make sure that we recognize that. But even more importantly, today is my grandmother's 86th birthday, and I am so grateful for her, so it's befitting that today is her day. Thank you.
For what purpose the gentleman from Chatham, Representative Reeves, rise?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Announcement. We will have a very, 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 very brief caucus immediately after session in 1425. In fact, it's going to be so fast, it's going to make your head spin unless y'all decide to make it longer. Thank you.
For what purpose the gentleman from Moore, Representative Jackson, rise?
As we are winding down our session.
The gentleman is recognized for an announcement.
Yeah, thank you. As we are winding down session, and in honor, I didn't realize that today is World Gratitude Day. We thought it would be good. Sometimes these sessions, I understand this time, get a little bit tense. And let's just take a moment for all of us just to thank the Lord for his many blessings. So at 11:45 this evening, before the closing session, we would just like to have a praise caucus over here in chapel, and if we overflow, it would be out here in the atrium. And to encourage you to come, we will have Krispy Kreme donuts for every member, and so tonight at 11:45.
And members, without objection, we will come back at session at 9:30 this evening. Requires leave of the House past 9. Any objection? Hearing none. We'll be back at 9:30. For what purpose does the lady from Forsyth, Representative Baker, rise?
In recognition of World Gratitude Day, I want to thank you for buying all of your Krispy Kreme donuts that is located in what? Winston-Salem.
I didn't see any. Where are they? All in the back. That's the way it goes. All right. Any further notices or announcements? Seeing nothing further before the body at this time, the chair is going to declare that the House shall stand in recess, subject to the standard stipulations of Rule 15.1 and modifications to the calendar, until 9:30 p.m. this evening.